What's up guys, welcome back and hello if you are new. I hope all of you are having a fantastic week so far. I'm usually pretty crap at doing these, not gonna lie. But this year I'm trying to be a little bit more organised. And I thought it would be a cool idea to do my albums of the year so far. There's not really an order. I kind of want to keep the sense of mystery until, right at the end. So first up, I want to kick off with Ahab and the Coral Tombs. One of the earliest releases of this year. I absolutely love this record. If you're not familiar with the band, they're kind of like a funeral doom band, and they always do concept albums that are normally nautically based. And this album talks about the story of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's a beautifully descriptive album, I think. Every time you listen to it, you feel like you are at the bottom of the ocean, just kind of like slowly cruising. Understand that's not the best timing at the moment. But yeah, without a doubt, one of my favourite albums. Is absolutely fantastic. Nothing else really makes me feel that sort of level of escapism. It only took the end of humanity for cattle decapitation to basically have a bit of empathy. For me, I think that's the biggest takeaway from Terrasite, is that, it's the first time that the band are really, I think, showing their vulnerability. Humans aren't all absolutely horrendous people. And I like the fact that it does have a sort of macro concept, but also a micro one as well, because of everything that happened with the band. Of course, it still sounds like paint being stripped off the wall, which is why we love it. But I really, really love the way that the concept brought this all together. The fact that the band, I think, are really starting to create their own universe as well, which I think is really, really cool. And it's also the first album to feature two guitarists. There's a lot more texture, a lot more things going on. Definitely, definitely a huge highlight of this year so far. After that, we have Enslaved and Heimdal. So this is a band, basically they decided to go into the unknown on the previous album, Utgard, which was very close to being one of my favourite albums of 2020. And yeah, it's essentially one of the, I think, sort of like the jumping off point of where we were at Utgard. And Heimdal is very, very psychedelic. It's very proggy, but it also is very black metal at the same time. And I like the duality between the two, because Enslaved have always been that. But if anything, it's been, even more of a focus on this album. And I like the idea of the philosophy behind Heimdal, who he is, what he represents to many, many different cultures. Definitely a huge, huge highlight of this year so far. Fall Out Boy returned with, I think, one of the best comeback songs I've heard in a very long time. Love from the Other Side was literally that statement of intent, like, we are back and we are not fucking around. They returned with Neil Avron, who is, producer for what is often regarded the more sort of rocky era of Fall Out Boy. And instead of kind of, going back and retreading old ground, they really brought something new and contemporary to their sound, but also throwing back a little bit as well. And there are so many cuts on here that are absolutely brilliant. Like Heaven, Iowa, oh my God, the first time I heard that, that was just absolutely fantastic. Patrick's voice is off the fucking charts. Fucking Andy Hurley's drums just sound enormous. And it's just such a great album. And, I like the fact that they have come back to this sort of rock sensibility. And it was kind of a surprise, not gonna lie, but that's why I love doing these kind of lists.
Only time will say, we count the days as its evil takes its race.
So Frozen Soul returned with Glacial Domination. They, I think, came out with Crypt Device in 2021, which was a great album, received a lot of critical acclaim, and I really enjoyed that album. But I like the fact that Glacial Domination really pushes them forward. I think they really started to understand what it meant to be Frozen Soul, and how they are actually going to evolve as a band. And, you know, they had the fact that they worked with Matt Heafy. I think that's a big, you know, thing in terms of how he was a bit more of a mentor for the band. But it's just got some great riffs, man. And, you know, I think death metal at the moment is in such brilliant health. And bands like Frozen Soul are going to do nothing but make that, you know, an even bigger sort of idea. I have played this album so much. So much. And after the sort of visceral concept album and the sort of double whammy of Vector and Virus, Fauna was a bit different, where it kind of looked at the idea of animals and their sort of like personification as people and representing multiple themes that are to do with the band. It was also the first album to feature Peter Jones after a very long time on keys. And it's just brilliant, man. Like, there are sprawling prog epics on here, but it's also able to be, you know, really concise in the form of Love Bite. Like, you know, the Elephants Never Forget is definitely up there with one of my favourite songs of Haken, and definitely a favourite song of this year as well. It's a truly brilliant record, and seeing it live was even better. I just can't wait to see even more of it, hopefully. Next up is, I think, the biggest risk-taking album that we've heard this year, and with a band, you know, like in their sort of stature and of their level, I think it makes even more of a kind of daring statement, and that is Avenged Sevenfold, Life is But a Dream. Nothing can prepare you for the album, is all I'm going to say. I think the album is absolutely sensational. And I'm sure from the amount I'm gushing about it, you know, you can tell that it's pretty high up there in my album of the year list. But I just love the fact that they had the balls to be like, do you know what? We're not going to listen to anyone else. We're just going to do what we want to do. Regardless of the fact that, you know, they're headlining Welcome to Rockville and they could play Download, you know, they could very easily kind of churn out an album that would be easy, but, you know, they have a really mature concept on, you know, display as well, and it's an album that I think really does require multiple listens. But the first time I heard it, the first way through, my jaw was just on the floor. You know, it was just absolutely brilliant, and still continues to be. And a massive shout to the fact that the vinyl sounds really good. Better than the record, for sure. And this one was a real surprise, and I know I didn't really rate it that highly on my review of it, but I just haven't stopped listening to it, in all honesty. It's just brilliant, you know, from that incredibly striking artwork. And I like the fact that they've tackled an idea of, you know, your first 18 years and what your parents are sort of like perceiving you to be, you know, based on their past experience, and then how, because of that, you will either sort of rebel or, you know, you'll kind of conform a little bit more. And it's just looking at more of an abstract idea, and it didn't break the mold 100%, but it's just so catchy. I don't know what it is, because it's a really long album as well, but I just keep listening to it. You know, it's like You Must Burn is like so sick, and 72 Seasons, the title track, Screaming Suicide, Inamorata, that sort of like massive Sabbathy Zeppelin style, you know, riff is so cool. And I'm so gutted that I missed them at Download, but hopefully we might go off to Denmark and see them there. So what must have been the hardest 5 years, I think, ever for a band, Obliviscaris came back swinging with the album of, I would say, potentially their career. You know, a lot of people cite Citadel as a career high, and I would say Exul is very much up there. You know, it was a record that was born out of a lot of turmoil. You know, it took a long time to kind of get put together, but I really think this is just an exceptional piece of work. Like, and it's just, I think, probably the most mature Obliviscaris album to date. You know, it kind of has that sense of restraint as well, which I think is really important, and maybe has been lacking in the previous installments, but it's just a brilliant album, you know.
This is why I don't leave the house. You say the coast.
So After Laughter, I remember buying that album and just being blown away. Like, that was so great. Big 80s vibe. And I remember hearing This Is Why, and I was kind of a bit like, that's kind of weird. It's a bit different, you know, they kind of dipped their toes into the indie pool, and now it was a bit more art rock. And I was like, great, I'm all for it. You know, this sort of idea of what they're doing is really interesting to me. And I like the fact that there's a lot more space on this album. I think you can tell that there's been an inspiration for Petals for Armor and Flowers for Vases, I think it is. But the lyrics on here are incredibly clever. You know, they're very self-aware, running out of time. Like, Laura, my wife, absolutely loves that song because it basically describes her. Like, she's always, you know, late for something. But most of all, it's just really great songs. And, you know, it's a short album, but I like the fact that it is short because you can kind of dip into it quite quickly. You know, I understand what they did with Tortured Whole. That was a big statement. And the thing is, I just wasn't quite vibing with it. I don't know why. I think it might have been, you know, the sort of like St. Anger style snare. But thankfully, I think that Homicidal Ecstasy has just, you know, upped the ante in every single respect. It was produced by Kurt Ballou, so sounds like a 2x4 against the head. You know, it's got a real sense of groove to it. And I find it's often that album that I put on when I don't really know what to listen to. Brilliant record. Like, this definitely has the undeniable potential song of the year for me, which is Wax Wings. Spencer Sotelo's performance on this is absolutely incredible. It's bombastic and it's exciting, and, you know, there's different ideas. Electronica is being experimented with, which I really enjoy. And it's definitely in the list currently. Whether it'll be there at the end of the year, who knows?
No grasp on reality, attention shaping.
So after the mega concept double whammy that was Phanerozoic 1 and 2, we had Holocene. The final track was Holocene title, and it kind of had more of a electronic sort of aspect to it, and they really kind of ran with that. And I like the fact that this album was composed in a different way. It sounds different. It without a doubt has the best production I've heard this year, and with that production it has this weird ability to be both minimalist but also maximalist. There's definitely more of a focus on electronics, and it pushes the ocean sound out further, I think, which is really important. So it's kind of, you know, the ocean but not quite as you know it. And finally, we come to Sleep Token, Take Me Back to Eden. This, I remember when I first heard Sundowning, you know, I kind of took note of Sleep Token, but I didn't realise that they were going to evolve into this, you know, a band that have literally sold out Wembley Arena in 10 minutes. That's unbelievable. But yeah, Sundowning, The Night Does Not Belong to God. I remember hearing that for the first time, and I was really hooked. But when I heard Take Me Back to Eden, and specifically Chokehold and The Summoning, I just thought, this is exactly what I've wanted. I've wanted it to be less singy breakdown, and this is completely progressive. And when I heard the full thing, I was just absolutely blown away. You know, there's electronics, there's R&B, there's sort of like hip-hop trap beats, there's, you know, sort of like Jeff Buckley style things happening. There's really heavy bits. There's black gaze going on. Like, it just feels like everything has been sort of allowed to happen, but also it sounds quintessentially Sleep Token at the same time. I know I said I wouldn't sort of like reveal anything in this video, but I would say that it's between Sleep Token and Avenged Sevenfold currently for my album of the year position, because it's just unbeatable. The two of them, they're just very similar but also incredibly different at the same time. And I love the fact that bands are doing something different. You know, that's the biggest thing I always look for in an album of the year. So let me know what you think of this video, and also what your choices are for album of the year currently. I'd love to hear them. And thanks so much for all the love on the vinyl video as well. That was really, really cool. Definitely going to be doing some more of them and kind of, you know, changing the content on the channel a little bit more. So yeah, thank you ever so much for watching. If you did enjoy this, it'd be great if you could hit that like and subscribe button. I have to say it, I'm a YouTuber. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. All right, take care, my friends.